Right, hello, it's Mr. Dobson. We're going to be working on building a box for a BBC Microbit enclosure to use. First thing we're going to want to do is just to make sure that the box or enclosure fits around the Microbit. It'd be useful to have a very basic version of the Microbit built in Fusion. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off. I've made a new folder Microbit. I've made a folder in that Mr. Dobson for my version. And so that's done. Then I'm going to save my document first. I'm going to call it Microbit case. Save. It's always best to get all that done first. Make sure you're on the right bit. Now, there we go. It's updated there. That's the overall document. Now, what I want to be able to do later is move the Microbit into the case and check it fits. And to do that, I need to make sure that it's a separate component. So first we're going to right click here, new component, and we can name it Microbit. Now I have a Microbit in front of me to help with this, in case I need to take any measurements of it. I also have the battery pack because we're going to try and make one that includes a battery pack too. I have some calipers, which is like a very clever ruler to be able to measure accurately anything I need to. But if you search on the internet, you will find for any electric device pretty much schematic plans. So here we've got details of the Microbit, that's the front, and then if we scroll down we can see the back, and it's got measurements on it that can allow us to build a pretty decent analog of a Microbit. Okay, so that's what we're going to try and do. So the first thing we're going to do is build the main board, which is 42 millimeters. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see clearer. Get the hand tool up, there we go. So 42 millimeters high by 51.6 millimeters wide. So we're in the Microbit here, in the right component. And click here, turn the origin on so we can see what we're doing. Doesn't really matter which way I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it lying down. I just tend to do things lying down. So click on the bottom here, create sketch. I'm going to want a square so I can, don't really want that there, press escape, put it where I want it, which is on the origin. Drag that up, and I'm just going to do that for now. Now I'm going to dimension it, so I'm going to press D, and I'm going to pick that dimension and set that to, I'm old so I forget things, 51.6. And it's already in millimeters. Then I'm going to click on this dimension here and set that to 42. Okay, there we go. So now I can move that a little bit closer there, it's a bit neater. Now I have that, come out of dimension mode by pressing escape. We'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to our schematic. So it looks like the corners are radiused. So we see here a radius on each corner. Now sometimes you might be given details of the radius of a corner to allow you to do it, relatively accurately. With this, we're not given details on the radius thing here, so we'll probably just do something that looks roughly correct. We could, what we'd need to know really is sort of what this point here is, and I can tell going by this measurement here, which is about 6 millimeters, this is going to be about 3 millimeter radius, I reckon, in the corners. So that's what we'll go with, just by eye. This is only, we're not going to make it so that it's that tight to it anyway, so it shouldn't be a problem. So what we're going to do is zoom into a corner. We're going to take an arc, a center point arc. Okay, and that's how we're going to draw it. Before we do that, we need to know where to draw it from. So, almost forgot. So we're going to press L for line, then X to make it a construction line. Put any point on the side there and just draw a straight line down. Okay, tick. And then any point on the side here and just draw a straight line across. Tick. Now we're going to dimension them to where we want. So I want this to be 3 millimeters, and I want this to be, click there and there, 3 millimeters. What that's done is give me a point here, which is going to be super useful for our next bit. So I'm going to press L and X to take my construction off, and then I'm going to go to arc, center point arc, click that there, and that is going to draw me a nice arc on the corner. Now, I could go and do this on all of them. That'd be one way of doing it. But what we can do instead is use the features of Fusion 360 to do the work for us. Now, if it was a symmetrical shape, we could use the revolve tool and we could basically do it in each corner. But because it's not symmetrical, we're going to have to mirror. So we'll go L and X to put a construction line in. Now, when you find the halfway point between on this side, it will come up with a little triangle. So find that halfway point there. Find the halfway point on this side. That's given us the center. Press X to take construction line off and escape to come out of that. So now we can click on this line and we can mirror it. So we're going to click up here, mirror. We're going to select to mirror it in this line. Okay, and there we go, it's done. Then we're going to click on that, hold control, and click on this one. So we've got both of them highlighted this time. And then we're going to click mirror, and this time we're going to select this line and we mirror it at the bottom. There we go. So we now have the corners radiused on top and bottom. We're not going to bother with all the intricacies down here. Not overly worried about that. We might put these holes in though, so we've got an idea of leaving the bottom edge of the board exposed for connections. So we're pretty much there now. So now we're going to extrude the board. That's 1.6 millimeters thick. So we can click on this and we can press Q. And the distance we want is 1.6 millimeters. And there we have our board. So if I press that, you can see it there. We can take our origin off now. We don't need that anymore. So now we've got to put a few features on it that are going to govern how we design our microbit. So let's put this as the front. We're going to create a sketch on the front. Move it into the middle a bit. Lovely. So what features do we want to add first? Well, there are main features in the front is this matrix here. So this set of LEDs. We want a window so we can see them because we might program them. And the two buttons, A and B. Now, we're not given sizes and dimensions for the buttons, but we are given some information on where the buttons are on the board. So I will get my gauge out now quickly, and I'll measure the size of the buttons. 6.3 millimeters by 6.3 millimeters square. Yeah, about 6.3. That gives us a little bit of wiggle room. So what we'll do is we'll use that. So we're going to add a square on the front, 6.3 by 6.3, and we're going to do it in line with, so if this is, we want 28, a line 28, is that the right one? No, 20.96. So basically it's on our halfway line, because that'll be roughly halfway. So we can, that's already there. We'll put a halfway line in. We'll have to put a new construction line in because we've extruded it now. And then we need a line 5.86 in and 45.74 in from that edge for our two squares. So let's go back now. So we're going to press L for line, X for construction line, find our center line on this side, that's easy. Then we'll drop two lines in anywhere we want, we don't really care as long as they're nice and straight, and then we'll dimension them afterwards. Okay, I always think I preferred it that way because I forget dimensions and I have to check them again. So 5.86, so press D, click on the construction line, click on this edge, and that's 5.86, and then the other one was 45.74, just a bit of room to work. Click on them, 45.74, like that. Excellent. I'm going to press escape to come out of dimension mode. I'm going to press L and X to take my construction lines off. And now I'm going to draw a rectangle, but I want a center point rectangle. So I'm going to use the centers here. And I'm going to make it 6.3. Press tab to go to the other one. 6.3. And there is my square. I'm going to do that twice. I could mirror it, but realistically, it is just as easy to just do that again. Might even be easier. Cool. So there they are. Now I can click on both of these, press Q to extrude them, and then we've got to get an idea of how high they are, which luckily is marked on our board, 4.55 millimeters. So extrude that to 455. There we go. There's our button. Now, technically, obviously, it's not a real button. It's just two squares. It works as an analog for you to be able to test your case fits. If I wanted to, there's no reason why I can't make a little bit more detail in the top of this. You know, create a sketch in here, put a circle, extrude down a little bit. Let's do it just to see what we could do. We don't need to. This is purely aesthetic to make it look a little bit more like it now. But, you know, maybe it's a good practice. So we're going to create a sketch. L for line, X for construction. We're going to just join the corners so that we can find our center. Nice and easy. Press X to come out of construction line. And then we're going to take a circle, basically make it look whatever we think the button should look like. Let's make it a 4mm button. Then we're going to click on the outside of the button. Actually, we'll do both at once. So what we'll do now is we'll come across to this side and repeat that process. So L, X, get our lines. Oh, it's now so here's the problem. It's not letting me pick up on these corners, and the reason is I chose the other surface over the other side to create my sketch on. So it now isn't recognizing this bit. So we're going to have to do it one by one. Otherwise, it's just going to make our life a lot more tricky unnecessarily. So we'll click on that, press Q, and where instead last time we were pulling out, now we'll be recessing. So we'll recess 1 mil, and now it looks more like a button. So we'll quickly do that again on the other side. So create sketch, line, X, find the center, press X to turn that off, pick the circle, 4mm, press Q, there we go, and then -1 to recess it. And now we have the two buttons on the front of our Microbit. So now we want to look at the matrix that goes on the front. So we can see we've got the start and end of the matrix. Now what we actually got is the center of the LEDs. So we'll have to adjust for that, but we can deal with that, that's not a problem. So first we want to throw some construction lines on to give ourselves where we're going to work from. So we've got a construction line at 17.8 and 33.8. So let's do that first. Create sketch, L, X. So let's just throw a couple of lines on here. Always checking that the degrees is 90 or 180, so it's, you know, it's perpendicular, it's a nice straight line. Press dimension, for D for dimension. And then we're going to set the first one, I've forgotten the numbers, 17.8, 33.8. So 17.8, oh, not 0, like that. And then this one's 33.8. 33.8. There we go. Now I'm going to press escape to come out of dimension tool, L for line. I'm going to draw 2 lines across. See, that one's at a funny angle, so we'll make sure it says 180 degrees. Or there we go. So we know the nice straight lines. Get rid of the X to get rid of construction line, and then escape out of that. Let's have a look at my next measurements. They are from the bottom. This one, 12 and 28. Okay, 12 and 28. So we're going to press D for dimension. 12, we were actually perfectly there. What are the odds? And 28. There we go. So now we've got the grid here that we know our buttons exist in. So we can, now there's a bunch of different ways we can do this. We can draw a load of LEDs on there if we want to. We could just draw a square that represents LEDs and we're not going to be overly concerned with it. There are different ways and means of doing things. In reality, there are some fun things we can do with using mirroring to mean that we haven't got to do it over and over again. There's not a lot of use in putting all the LEDs on there. So I'm just going to do it as a square because it's just easier. There's not a lot of stuff involved in that. Maybe at the end we'll come back and we'll do something cleverer. How far them LEDs stick out? Effectively, it's very, very little. It's going to be way less than the buttons, and we're not ever going to really cover them. So, we can just do 1 mil for argument's sake, just so that we can see it and we work around it. What we do have to consider though is that the LEDs go slightly beyond this. Now, the LEDs are absolutely tiny. When you actually see these things, they look huge on that picture, but on the board, I'm trying to measure them with my calipers now, they are 0.8 millimeters, so less than 1 millimeter wide. So we are only talking half a millimeter in sort of each direction, bigger than the square that we've drawn there, but we can do that. So we're going to go back to here and we're going to press L for line, and we're going to draw in our box. Like that. You could use the rectangle tool, but that's quite easy. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press escape to come out of line mode, and I'm going to click on these sides, being careful not to click on the long side. I want the short side, the one we just drew there. And I'm holding down control so I can click on multiple things at once. There. So that's got the square that I want. And then I'm going to do an offset. So I'm going to offset by, we said it was a bit half a millimeter, but if I do it 1, then I know that I am, 3, I mean that. So -1 offset. I know I'm well outside the limits of the LEDs. So basically it just draws a bigger box around the smaller box. Now we can click on, we'll need both. Press Q, and we can extrude that out to say 1 mil, just so that we can see what we've got. There we go. So now we've got an idea of our microbit. That looks pretty good. Now, the circles in the bottom, we might want to know where these are. Might be useful to us. So we can put the center one in, and then we can mirror out from there. Should be pretty easy. So we need a line, a construction line 6.86 up from the bottom. So we create sketch like that. L for line, X for construction. Draw something across here. Press escape. Dimension it by pressing D. 6.86, I believe it was. Just check. Yep. So we're very close anyway. 6.86, like that. We also press line. L for line. We're going to want some halfway across line. There we go. Now we're going to press X to get rid of construction and then escape out of our line. Now, the size of the holes. Does it give us the radius of the holes? It doesn't. You can tell from this dimensions here, these dimensions roughly what it is, but it doesn't actually tell us. But the vernier calipers that I have a hole measuring ability, so we're going to do that now. It is a 4mm hole. So I've measured that from the Microbit. So we go to here, 4mm, and there we go. Now we're going to want to mirror that out over here and here. We're going to look at how far we do one side and then it's going to do the other one for us. So we need a line at 4.21 and 14.37. So LX, and we'll draw a line up. Only has to cross the middle, that's all we need to do. Like that. Brilliant. Press X and then press escape to come out of that and to come out of the construction lines. So what's the first dimension? Was 4.21. So press D. 4.21. And then the next one was 14.37. And you see how little time I can keep a number in my head. 14.27. Go up to there. Grab ourselves 2 more 4mm circles. Select our 3 circles. Select mirror. Tell it to mirror in the center line. And there's the other ones. Now we select each. Press the first one. Press Q. Then you can add the extra ones without having to hold down Control or anything. Now we're going to cut out, and one of the tips here is we could go through by a certain amount and know that it's cut through, but a good practice here is to flip it over and then tell it to the extent type where to cut to, tell it to cut to an object, and then click on the back. It's now always going to cut to whatever thickness the back is. So if you then go in later and change the thickness of the board, it will automatically make that adjustment. Okay, and that is the front of the board done. So we're going to click save at that point, just make sure we don't lose any information. Done, and we're going to then work on the back. Okay, I've turned my microphone up a bit as well now, so hopefully I'm coming out a bit louder. Apologies if I just scared you. We're going to now look at the back. So if we go back to our drawing, there are 3 things on the back of the Microbit that overly concern us. There is a micro USB port here. There is a reset button, just like the buttons on the front here. And this is a JST connector, which is connecting to the power supply. This is the biggest thing on the back. Now, the position of the chips here on the back actually depends on which version of Microbit you've got. I think the ones we're using at the moment are going to be 1s. Hopefully we can get some 2s in the future. But these bits don't really stick out anything overly concerning. So it's these 3 features in the top right hand corner here that we're going to want to work around. So we can mark them on with these construction lines here, and then we can work out, well, the one that sticks out the furthest is the JST connector, which is 5.5. We know that the button sticks out 4.55, and we know that the this micro USB, if I measure it on mine, comes out about 3 millimeters, which is also what we've got sticking out further down here. You can see, because I think one of the newer version has a built-in speaker here, which is 3 millimeters out. So in reality, we're not going to want anything in the middle to be anywhere near 3 millimeters, and we might put this object in the middle here as well. Okay, so first of all, let's put in some construction lines for our top 3 parts up here. So we can do that. First of all, we're going to want to rotate it, so we can get to the back, right click, create sketch. It really drives me mad, it's upside down, so we'll click on the arrows to rotate twice. There we go. So I'm going to press L, I'm going to press X because we're going to draw some construction lines. I'm going to draw some lines down. As long as I don't catch the center one. I don't want that one because it won't let me move it. Because that's constrained by the fact that I've clicked it on the center. So get to there. There we go. Yeah, I'm going to press X to get rid of the construction lines. Escape out of that. So 7, then 16.27. Start with them. Press D. 7. I'm going to do all these at once this time. 16.27. I'm going to show you how to go in and extrude them one at a time if needed. And this one is 25.93. There we go, that's our 3 lines. Okay, so what else information can we gather from here? Well, we know this was 6.3 by 6.3, so we can draw that in. We're going to have to take a measurement of this off the real thing. So I'll go back to here. And they're basically sitting at the very top. You know, this gaps here, you're talking fraction of a millimeter. So we're going to do them actually flush with the top. So if we go back to Fusion, we can start with the thing we know best. We've already drawn some of. Now, because I want it aligned with the center, what I'm going to do is draw it half sized. So I'm going to want it half of 6.3, so 3.15. And then 6.3 in the outside. So I'm going to press Tab to go to the other one, 6.3. And that's drawn for me half the box. And guess what I'm going to do now? That's right, I'm going to mirror it. So click on the 3 sides I want. And then that just assures that it is lined up with that center line there. There we go. There's our box for our switch that we can add in later. So next we're going to go to the JST connection, the power supply, and measuring it, it is 8 millimeters wide, and at its deepest part it is 7.6 millimeters deep. Might as well make it 8 by 8 then, just for argument's sake, because we want a little bit of clearance. So we're going to do what we just did, but I'm going to do it again, so it'll be 4 by 8, and then I'm going to mirror it. So, oh, didn't mean to click on some weird bit there, so click off everything, start again, click, hold down Control. Okay, got them all. Press mirror, select the axis. Any line that's there will do. Okay, that gives me that one. Now the USB, micro USB is 8mm wide, and it's a bit tricky to measure depth. 5.5mm deep, and that's from the top. So I'm going to do it 4 by 5.5mm and then mirror it. So click on that. So we go 4 by 5.5, and then we'll select these 3 sides, mirror, select the axis, there we go. Okay, so now we have our 3 boxes. So we've got to draw this one out to 3mm out first of all. So we'll click on the 2, hold Control, or you can press Q first and then do it. We've got that, and we're going to draw that out to 3mm. Now what we need to remember is on the back of the board, so when we draw out, we're going to be going to, you've got to check if you're going to positive or negative. In this case, oh, it's positive, so that's fine. So there we go, 3mm down. There's our little USB connection. Now, all the other marks disappeared. Oh no, that's a bit annoying. But if you click on to sketches over here, click on the little arrow, that last sketch is here, because it's the last one we did. Double click on it, and we can get back to it. So now I can click on the next one, like that, press Q, and I can extrude that one out. Now, what did we want to extrude this one out? I remember that was shown up here, 4.55. So we do that one, 4.55. Okay, and then we're going to go back to that sketch again, and we're going to click on these 2 and extrude them out, and that one is 5.5. So 5.5. Press return. Right, they've run. Now we don't want the sketch lines there, so we can press the little I to hide them. That's good. One thing I'm going to do for consistency, just because it will drive me mad otherwise, is click on this one and put a button on it, just because you did on the other side, and now it'll annoy me. So LX, find the middle, press X to take construction lines off. I think this, oh, put them in the wrong place, escape, try that again. I think we've made them 4mm, if I remember rightly. Click on that, Q, and then we want to reduce that by -1. There we go. So that looks a little bit like the other side. Now, if I wanted to, there's lots of other things I could do. A simple thing here would be to hollow these out so that we can see that they're slots. So if I wanted to do that, let's see how we'll do that. We would right click, create sketch on the edge, give ourselves some kind of box. We can do it by clicking on them 3, clicking on the offset button, drawing ourselves a little box in. Looks good. Press L, connect the dots at the top here. Lovely. Now we've got a box. Press Q, draw that back in somewhat, and then there you go. Now it looks like an actual slot, which is quite cool. You know, these things are possible to do. We can do it in this one as well, just for fun, like that. Offset. There are other functions as well that could be used. There's a shell function that actually shells things out and things like that. But you know, the reality is you can do a lot with just the tools I'm teaching you. We don't want to go crazy to begin with. Press Q, draw that back a little bit. There we go. I'm happy with that. So now we have a analog. So it's not an actual BBC microbit, but it's a good representation of one. The last thing I want to do is looking on the back of it. So on the one that I've got, which is a version 1, it doesn't have a speaker on the back. The design I have here, which I believe is for the version 2 microbit, but it has something sticking out the back here, which it looks like it's a speaker reading that there. And it actually looks like it sticks out 3mm on the diagram up above. So I'm going to add that in just because I don't want to risk making the box too tight and that clashing. Now, what I'm going to want to do is draw just a rough idea of this shape here. It's obviously roughly in the middle of the board, and size-wise, it looks a slight bit wider than this. This was 8mm wide, so I'm going to make this 10 by 10 just to be plenty safe with it, but we're going to do it like a diamond shape in the back. So we'll create a sketch. Okay, we'll do L, X for some construction lines. We'll use the triangle to find the middle. So there's the middle of that one. There's the middle of that one. Like that. Oh, what did I do there? Did something weird. Press back up. Try that again. And it was doing something weird. There we go. Got the center. So now what do I want to do? I want to find, so if I want it 1 by 1, I've got to draw a rectangle, but I want the rectangle diagonal. Should be able to do that by using that. Now, I've made a mistake immediately because I've left the construction line on. That's easy enough to fix. You click on the lines and just press X like that. Now, if we can dimension this out, we'll be in business. It's going to let us dimension diagonally, which it is. Perfect. So make that 10, which has moved it slightly off the line, but I think we'll be all right. Okay, it's telling me I'm over dimensioning it. That's because I was clicking on the wrong bit. 10. So now it's moved the shape slightly. This isn't the best way to do it. Don't like that. So I'm going to come back. I don't like that that's now slightly offset from the middle. So let's see if we can do a center point rectangle and will it let us rotate it? First of all, I'm going to take construction line off. No. Okay. So we're going to do something different. We're going to do it with a line. So first of all, I'm going to draw a circle. I want this to be 1 millimeter wide. So I'm going to set this to 10 millimeter wide circle. I do want that to be a construction line, so I'm going to click on it and press X. Now I have my point here. Oh, I've gone blue. I'll click somewhere off of it. Now I have a point here and here. So I'm going to press line. Click there. Click there. I've got one of the sides I want. Now I could draw the other sides in, but I can also use the circular pattern rule. So I can click on this, select my center, which is there, and it's done automatically. It's done 3. I want 4, and then OK, and it puts it all in there for me. So that was the best way to do it. See, I have to think about these things myself sometimes as I'm doing it. What's the best way to do something? Extrude it out 3 millimeters, and there's that object in the center there. Now, looking back at the specifications, that pretty much gives us everything we want. In an ideal world, I would also put these 2 little circles on. And the reason for that is they might be a really good way to pin the board into position. But looking at the size of the circles in real life, they're probably 1 mil, maybe 1.5 mil diameter holes. In which case, we're not going to be able to 3D print anything that's going to go through there anyway. So holding it in position with that isn't really going to help us. So we're going to draw a line under the project there. So I'm going to hide all them, don't need that. Press save. Okay. And now I have a BBC Microbit to the rough dimensions of what a real one is in Fusion 360 that I can now create a box around. I am also potentially going to want to include the battery box in my design. However, there's not much point really in doing it. It is literally a square or a rectangle. So there's not much point in actually worrying too much about that. We can deal with that when the time comes.